Jack Harrison looked out at the red hills of New Eden from his porch. The morning sun cast long shadows across the colony's buildings. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't notice. His mind was on his son, Kevin, who played with model spaceships in the yard. "Dad, look." Kevin held up a tiny replica of a human cruiser. "It's just like the ones that protect us." Jack smiled. At 8 years old, Kevin was smart and curious. He had his mother's blue eyes and Jack's stubborn chin. "That's right, son. But remember, we're guests here. The council ships protect us too." Kevin's face scrunched up. "But Billy's dad says the aliens don't like us." Jack sighed and walked down to kneel beside his son. "It's not that simple. The council has rules for everyone. We're just new to space, and they're being careful." 20 yards away, Mary Harrison hung laundry on a line. She caught Jack's eye and smiled. After 12 years of marriage, she still made his heart skip a beat. Her blonde hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her hand showed the calluses of colony life. "Kevin, time to get ready for school," Mary called. Jack watched Kevin run to the house. 50 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. Then the council scout ships arrived. Earth learned it was just one small part of a vast galactic community with 27 member species. Some had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out fire. Jack's wrist device beeped with a message. Colony security needed him. As New Eden's security consultant, Jack's days were busy. The colony had grown to 5,000 people in just 3 years. "I've got to go," he told Mary, kissing her quickly. "Council inspection team is landing today." Mary's smile faded. "Be careful what you say to them. Remember last time?" Jack nodded. Last time, he had argued with a council official about the colony's defensive perimeter. The alien had reported him as showing dangerous military thinking. Jack had almost lost his job. "I'll be diplomatic," he promised. Jack walked through the colony center. People nodded to him respectfully. They knew his background. Before coming to New Eden, Jack had been Special Forces, one of Earth's best soldiers. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion and led the rescue mission on Europa Station. But that was another life. Here, he was just trying to raise his son in peace. At the landing pad, Colony Administrator Susan Miller waited. Her gray suit looked freshly pressed, but her expression was worried. "Jack, thank goodness. The council is sending High Commissioner Zex Talos himself." Jack whistled. "That's unusual." "It gets worse. He's bringing a Vexari delegation." Jack frowned. The Vexari were one of the oldest council races and known for their dislike of humans. They had voted against allowing Earth to join the council. "Any idea why?" Jack asked. Susan shook her head. "No, but I need this to go well. New Eden's expansion permit depends on a good report. A silver ship descended from the clouds. Unlike human vessels, council ships moved with barely a sound. The ship settled on the pad, and a ramp extended smoothly. First came the security drones, floating metal spheres with scanning equipment. Then descended High Commissioner Zex Talos. The tall, blue-skinned alien moved with the slow grace of a species that lived for centuries. Behind him came 3 Vexari, their scaled bodies gleaming green in the sunlight. The smallest was clearly a child, perhaps the equivalent of 10 human years. "Administrator Miller," Zex Talos said, his translator making his voice sound flat and mechanical. "We come to inspect your progress." Susan stepped forward with a practiced smile. "We welcome the council's interest in our humble colony." Jack stood back, watching. He noticed how the Vexari looked at the human buildings with distaste. Their child stayed close, eyes darting nervously. Jack had a sudden bad feeling. Council inspections were routine, but bringing a Vexari child to a human colony was not. Something wasn't right. He touched his wrist device, sending a quick message to Mary. "Keep Kevin home from school today." The inspection tour moved slowly through the colony. Jack stayed a few steps behind Administrator Miller and the council officials. His job was to answer security questions, not make small talk. Zextalos paused at the colony's power plant. Your energy output has increased by 22% since our last visit. Susan smiled proudly. Yes, Commissioner, we've improved efficiency as requested. The lead Vexari, who had introduced himself as Diplomat Sevkarn, made a hissing sound. Yet your population has grown by 30%. You expand too quickly. Jack bit his tongue. Earth had billions of people looking for new homes. New Eden was barely a dot on the planet's surface. The tour continued to the community center, where colony children were having lunch. Jack spotted Kevin sitting with his friends. Despite his message to Mary, his stomach tightened. Something about the Vexari child's presence still bothered him. Kevin saw Jack and waved excitedly. Jack gave a small nod, hoping his son would stay put. But Kevin was already running over, eager to meet real aliens. Dad, are these the council people you told me about? Kevin asked, eyes wide. Before Jack could answer, the Vexari child stepped forward, head tilted in curiosity. The two children studied each other, different species, but with the same youthful interest. This is my son, Kevin, Jack said carefully. Kevin, these are important visitors. Remember what we discussed about showing respect. Kevin nodded seriously and made the council greeting gesture Jack had taught him. He extended his hands, palms up. Welcome to our home. The adult Vexari looked surprised. Jack felt a moment of pride. Then everything went wrong. The Vexari child reached out, touching Kevin's hair. Kevin flinched at the unexpected contact. His hand came up automatically. No touching, remember, Kevin said, stepping back. The Vexari child screeched and fell backward. Its parent rushed forward, cradling it and hissing angrily. What happened? Susan asked, looking between the children in confusion. The Vexari diplomat pointed at Kevin. Your offspring attacked. This is forbidden. Jack moved to his son's side. Kevin didn't attack anyone. He just moved away when touched. Zextalos raised his hand for silence. The security drones record everything. We will review the footage. Jack relaxed slightly. The footage would show Kevin was innocent. But when they gathered in the colony's meeting room to watch the recording, Jack's blood ran cold. The footage showed Kevin's hand moving, but from an angle that made it look like he had struck the Vexari child. The recording didn't capture the alien touching Kevin's hair first. This is clear, said Zextalos. The human child assaulted a council member's offspring. That's not what happened, Jack insisted. The camera angle is misleading. Other witnesses from the community center came forward, explaining what they had seen. But the council officials dismissed their accounts as human bias. Susan tried to negotiate. Surely a misunderstanding between children doesn't warrant serious action. We can implement additional cultural training. The Vexari diplomat's scales darkened with anger. The law is clear. Violence against council officials or their families calls for swift judgment. Kevin clutched Jack's hand, confused and frightened. Jack knelt beside him. It's going to be okay, son. This is just a mistake. But Jack saw the cold determination in Zextalos' 4 eyes. The High Commissioner activated his communication device. This matter will be referred to the Judicial Committee immediately, Zextalos announced. The human child will remain in custody until their decision. Custody. Jack stood up, his military training surging to the surface. He's 8 years old. You can't take him. Security drones moved forward, forming a barrier between Kevin and his father. Mary burst into the room, having heard the commotion. What's happening? She cried, seeing the drones surrounding her son. Jack reached for Kevin, but a drone emitted a warning pulse that forced him back. His mind raced through options, each worse than the last. Fighting would only confirm the council's fears about human violence. Dad? Kevin's voice trembled. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, son, Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady. We'll fix this. I promise. But as the drones escorted Kevin away, Jack saw the satisfied look on the Vexeri diplomat's face. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Jack and Mary spent the night pacing in their small home. Jack called every contact he had on Earth and in the Council. Mary cried until she had no tears left. "This can't be happening," she whispered. "He's just a child." Jack held her tightly. "The Council has to follow their own laws. They'll see the truth." But Jack didn't believe his own words. He had seen enough of Council politics to know that humans were still viewed as dangerous newcomers. Making an example of one might serve certain interests. At sunrise, Administrator Susan Miller arrived at their door. Her face told them everything before she spoke. "The Judicial Committee held an emergency session," she said, her voice shaking. "They've reached a verdict." Mary gripped Jack's arm so hard it hurt. "What verdict?" "They can't possibly." "The committee has found Kevin guilty of unprovoked violence against a council member's child," Susan said. They've sentenced him to summary punishment." Jack felt the floor drop away beneath him. "What does that mean? What punishment?" Susan couldn't meet his eyes. "Execution. To be carried out immediately." Mary collapsed. Jack caught her, his mind refusing to process the words. "That's impossible," he said. "There are appeals, hearings, evidence reviews. They can't just." "They already have," Susan said. "The sentence was carried out an hour ago. I just received the notification." Jack went still. The room became silent except for Mary's broken sobs. "They killed our son without even letting us say goodbye." Jack's voice was deadly quiet. Susan nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Jack, I'm so sorry." The council claimed that human emotion would disrupt proceedings and create security risks. Jack gently laid Mary on the couch. He walked to the window and looked out at the peaceful colony, now forever changed. "Get out," he told Susan. "Jack, I tried everything. Get out." After Susan left, Jack sat beside his broken wife. A part of him had died with Kevin. But another part, a part he had buried when he left military service, began to awaken. 3 days passed. Jack and Mary barely spoke. The colony sent food and messages of support, but nothing could touch their grief. On the 4th day, Jack received a message from Susan asking him to come to her office immediately. Jack found the administrator with a council data tablet, her hands trembling. "What is it?" he asked. "I couldn't let it go," Susan said. "Something felt wrong about the whole incident, so I had one of our tech specialists access the original drone footage before it was processed by council systems." She handed him the tablet. "This is what really happened." Jack watched the recording. This version showed the entire incident clearly. The Vexeri child had reached for Kevin's hair. Kevin had simply stepped back, raising his hand defensively, but never touching the alien child. The Vexeri child had then deliberately fallen backward, creating a scene. "It was staged," Jack said, rage building inside him. Susan nodded. "I think so. But there's more." She tapped the screen to show another file. "This is a message that was sent from the Vexeri ship to their government before they even landed here." The message was in Vexeri language, but had been translated by colony software. "Operation Precedent is proceeding. Target colony identified. Subject child selected. This demonstration will secure tighter restrictions on human expansion." Jack stared at the screen. "They planned this from the beginning. They murdered my son as a political move." "I tried to send this evidence to sympathetic council members," Susan said, "but I'm being blocked at every turn. Someone powerful doesn't want this seen." Jack handed the tablet back to her. "Make copies. Hide them. Tell no one else what you found." "What are you going to do?" Susan asked. Jack thought of his son's smile, of the model spaceships he would never play with again, of Mary's hollow eyes, drained of all hope. "What I should have done from the start," Jack replied. "Fight back." As Jack walked home, his military mind began calculating. The council had vast resources, but they had made a critical error. They had killed the wrong child, and they had no idea what a human father was capable of when everything he loved was taken from him. Jack knew he couldn't fight the Galactic Council alone. For 2 weeks, he researched and made careful contacts while helping Mary deal with their grief. He told her nothing of his plans. Better that she could honestly deny knowledge if things went wrong. One evening, Jack visited the colony science building. He found Patricia Donovan in her lab, studying alien plant samples. As the colony's top xenologist, Patricia had more contact with other species than anyone else on New Eden. "I need your help," Jack said simply. Patricia looked up from her microscope. "With what?" "Finding others who have suffered under the Council's justice system." Patricia's eyes widened. She checked that they were alone before speaking. "This is about Kevin." Jack nodded. "The Council murdered my son to make a political point. I have proof. But I need allies to expose the truth." Patricia sighed and removed her lab coat. "Come with me." She led Jack to her private office and locked the door. From a hidden compartment in her desk, she pulled out an old-fashioned paper notebook. "I've been documenting cases for years," she said. "Humans aren't the only ones treated unfairly. The Council's founding species maintain control by keeping newer members divided and weak." Jack flipped through pages of neatly written notes, cases from a dozen worlds where justice had been ignored or twisted to serve political goals. "These people might help us," Patricia said, "especially the Novan traders. They've been fighting Council corruption longer than we've been in space." Jack's wrist device beeped. A secure message from Earth. Commander Alan Ellis of the Earth Defense Fleet had responded to his careful inquiry. "I have an ally on Earth," Jack told Patricia. "Someone with access to fleet resources. Nothing official, but enough to help." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you planning, Jack?" "Not revenge," Jack replied. "Justice. The truth needs to be seen by everyone in Council space, not just about Kevin, but all of these cases." Over the next few days, Jack and Patricia established contact with potential allies. The Novan traders agreed to meet. Commander Ellis sent encrypted files on Council security systems. A human hacker named Kayla Wright, who had lost her sister in a similar incident, offered her services. 1 week later, Jack sat in a Novan trading vessel orbiting New Eden's moon. Around the table were representatives from 4 species, all with stories of Council injustice. "The Central Archive on Nexus Prime holds all unaltered records," said Lith, a tall Novan with silver skin. "If we could access those files and broadcast them across all Council channels, everyone would see the truth." Jack studied the holographic map of Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. "How do we get in?" "Security will be tight." "That's where I come in," said Kayla, her fingers dancing across a datapad. "Council systems are good, but they're designed to stop conventional attacks. I've found several back doors." Rax, a reptilian saurid, clicked his claws nervously. "Even with access, we'd need a diversion to reach the physical servers." Jack thought of his military days, of operations behind enemy lines with no backup, of making hard choices when everything went wrong. "I'll handle the physical infiltration," Jack said. "Kayla provides tech support. Patricia and Commander Ellis coordinate from outside. The rest of you spread the word through your networks once we have the files." The aliens looked at Jack with a mixture of doubt and hope. They had spent years carefully documenting abuses, afraid to act. Humans had only been in space for 5 decades, yet here was one ready to challenge the entire Council. "You understand what will happen if you're caught?" Lith asked. "They won't just imprison you. They'll make an example of you, worse than what happened to your son." Jack met the aliens' gaze steadily. They already took everything that mattered. Now they'll learn what that means. The group spent hours refining the plan. Each member contributed knowledge of Council systems or contacts who might help. Jack's military experience helped shape their approach, showing routes and tactics the Council would never expect from primitive humans. As the meeting ended, Rax approached Jack privately. "Your species frightens many in the Council. Now I understand why. We're not monsters, Jack said. We just don't give up when it matters. Perhaps that is what they fear most, Rax replied. A species that will not accept defeat. Jack returned to New Eden late that night. He found Mary sitting on Kevin's bed, holding one of his toy spaceships. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice hollow. Jack knelt beside her, making sure Kevin didn't die for nothing. Mary looked at him, seeing the military man she had first met years ago, resurfacing behind his eyes. "Will it bring him back?" she asked. "No," Jack admitted, "but it might stop this happening to another child, human or otherwise." Mary handed him the toy spaceship. "Then take this. For luck." For 3 weeks, Jack and his allies prepared. They gathered equipment, studied maps, and practiced their roles. The plan grew more detailed with each meeting. Jack pushed himself harder than anyone, reviewing every possible scenario, finding solutions to problems before they could arise. "You need to rest," Patricia told him one night as they reviewed security protocols. "You've been awake for 30 hours. Jack rubbed his eyes. "I'll rest when it's done." Their base of operations was an abandoned mining station in the asteroid belt. Commander Ellis had arranged for it to be overlooked in Earth Defense Fleet records. The station hummed with activity as each team member prepared. Kayla sat surrounded by screens, her fingers never stopping. "Council security updates every 12 hours, she explained to Jack. "I've mapped their patterns. We'll have a 7-minute window when the systems reboot." Lith, the Novan trader, studied cargo manifests. "My ship has clearance to land on Nexus Prime in 4 days. Council trade inspectors are understaffed. They won't check every container." Jack nodded. "That's our way in. Kayla and I hide in the cargo. Once on the surface, we move at night." Rax entered the room with weapons. Not Council standard issue, but older models that wouldn't trigger security scans. These will work if needed. But remember, avoiding detection is better than fighting. Jack examined the weapons, simple but effective, like the plan itself. "The archive is here," Jack said, pointing to a holographic map. 50 levels below the Council chamber. 4 security checkpoints, biometric scanners at each one, which I can bypass, Kayla added, but only for 90 seconds each time. Patricia frowned at the map. "The final door requires a Council member's genetic signature. How do we get past that?" Jack opened a small case. Inside was a vial of blue liquid, High Commissioner Xtalos' skin cells, collected from New Eden after their visit, enough to fool the scanner. The aliens stared at Jack with new respect. Humans were supposed to be technologically inferior, yet Jack had thought of everything. Once inside, Jack continued, "Kayla accesses the main server. We find the files on Kevin and all the other cases. Then we broadcast through every Council channel simultaneously. The broadcast will only last 5 minutes before they shut it down," Kayla warned. 5 minutes is enough if everyone sees the truth," Jack replied. "The Council maintains power through their image of perfect justice. We shatter that image." As the day approached, Jack recorded a message to Mary. He explained everything, including where to find the evidence if he didn't return. He sent it on a delayed transmission that would only activate if he didn't check in after the mission. The night before departure, Jack stood alone in his quarters. He held Kevin's toy spaceship, turning it over in his hands. The pain was still raw, but it had hardened into something focused, something that drove him forward. There was a knock at his door. Patricia entered with a datapad. "Final intel from Ellis," she said. "The Council is holding their annual Justice Summit on Nexus Prime next week. All major species representatives will be there." Jack's eyes narrowed. Perfect timing. They'll all see what their perfect justice really means. Patricia sat beside him. "Jack, I've been thinking, what happens after? If we succeed, the Council won't just accept defeat. There will be consequences, for all of us." "I know," Jack said quietly. "That's why I've prepared escape routes for everyone. The Novan systems are outside Council control. You'll all be safe there. And you? Patricia asked. Jack was silent for a moment. I'll do what needs to be done. Patricia looked troubled. This isn't just about Kevin anymore, is it? This could change everything between humans and the Council. It was never just about Kevin, Jack replied. It's about every species treated as lesser because they're new to the stars. The Council needs to learn they can't just take a child's life to make a political point. Later, as Jack tried to sleep, he remembered teaching Kevin about the stars, about how humans had dreamed of reaching them for thousands of years, about how each light in the sky might hold new friends or new challenges. Are there bad aliens, Dad? Kevin had asked. There are no bad species, Jack had told him. Just some who've forgotten what it means to be fair. Tomorrow, Jack would remind them. The Novan trading ship glided toward Nexus Prime, its hold filled with exotic goods from a dozen worlds. Hidden among containers of rare minerals were 2 secret passengers. Jack checked his equipment one last time while Kayla ran final tests on her devices. Approaching Nexus Prime Customs, Lith's voice came through their earpieces. Prepare for inspection. Jack and Kayla moved to their hiding places inside specially designed containers. These boxes had false bottoms and air supplies that would last 6 hours. They also blocked scanner signals, a Novan invention that Council security didn't know about. The ship landed with a gentle bump. Jack heard muffled voices as customs officials boarded. His hand tightened on Kevin's toy spaceship in his pocket. After 30 tense minutes, the voices faded. Inspection complete, Lith whispered through the comm. They scanned only the outer containers, moving to the drop point now. An hour later, Jack and Kayla emerged in a storage area of the massive spaceport. They quickly changed into maintenance worker uniforms. The city transport system is on the next level, Kayla said, checking her datapad. We need to reach the central district before the night cycle ends. They moved through the spaceport confidently, looking like they belonged. Jack had trained his team well. Act normal. Don't rush. Don't hide your face from cameras. On the transport platform, a Council security drone hovered nearby. Jack kept his face neutral as it passed. The drone paused, its sensors scanning them briefly before moving on. That was close, Kayla whispered when it was gone. Too close, Jack replied. They've increased security for the Justice Summit. The transport pod took them toward the towering buildings of the Central District. Nexus Prime was a world of gleaming structures and advanced technology. Jack had never seen anything like it on human worlds. The city seemed to go on forever, levels upon levels reaching toward the sky. They exited near a public park designed for multiple species. The night cycle had begun, and the park was nearly empty. First checkpoint is in the service tunnels under the Council chamber, Jack said. We have 2 hours to reach it during the security shift change. They found the maintenance entrance and descended into the tunnels. The first checkpoint was a simple scanner gate with a bored-looking Saurid guard. Now, Jack whispered. Kayla activated her device. The scanner display flickered for exactly 3 seconds, enough time for them to walk through undetected. The guard didn't even look up from his datapad. The second checkpoint was harder, a full genetic scanner. Kayla's device couldn't fool it for long. I need 90 seconds, she said, working on the control panel. Keep watch. Jack positioned himself at the corner, watching for patrols. The tunnel was silent except for the hum of distant machinery. Done, Kayla said finally. But they'll detect the tampering in about 10 minutes. We'll be past the third checkpoint by then, Jack replied. They moved deeper into the tunnel system. The air grew cooler as they descended. The third checkpoint had 2 guards, but Patricia's intelligence was accurate. They were distracted by a gambling game on their datapads. Kayla's device sent a false alarm to another sector. The guards received the alert and hurried away, leaving the checkpoint unmanned for precious minutes. Too easy, Kayla muttered as they passed through. That's what worries me, Jack said. The fourth and final checkpoint loomed ahead, a sealed door with the most advanced security. This was the entrance to the archive itself. "This is it," Jack said, removing the vial of Zextalos' skin cells. "Once we're inside, we'll have 7 minutes before the systems reboot." Kayla prepared her equipment to access the archives. Jack approached the scanner and carefully applied the skin cells to its surface. The scanner hummed, analyzing the genetic material. Jack held his breath. Red lights flashed. Alarms blared. The scanner had detected something wrong. "It's not working," Kayla shouted over the noise. Jack's mind raced. They had been so careful. Then he realized. Zextalos must have unique genetic markers as a High Commissioner. The sample wasn't complete enough. "We need a new plan," Jack said, pulling Kayla away from the door as security forces would surely be coming. "There's another way," a voice said from the shadows. Patricia stepped forward, her face grim. "I knew something might go wrong. I came as backup." "How did you get here?" Jack demanded. "The same way you did. Lith smuggled me in a different container." Before Jack could respond, they heard footsteps approaching. Security forces were coming from both directions. "We're trapped," Kayla said, fear in her voice. Jack looked between the approaching guards and the sealed archive door. Their mission was too important to fail. "Patricia, take Kayla and go with Plan B," he ordered. "I'll create a diversion." "That's suicide," Patricia argued. Jack pulled out a small device Commander Ellis had given him. "This will disable their weapons for 30 seconds. Enough time for you to escape. The mission matters more than any of us." Kayla hesitated, but Patricia grabbed her arm. "He's right. We need to get to the secondary access point." As they slipped away down a side tunnel, Jack faced the approaching guards. He thought of Kevin, of Mary, of all the others who had suffered council injustice. "For Kevin," he whispered, and activated the device. The device in Jack's hand pulsed with energy. The approaching guards' weapons flickered and died. Jack charged forward, using his military training to maximum effect. He knocked down 3 guards before they could react. The others fell back, calling for backup. Jack knew he couldn't escape, but escape wasn't the goal. He needed to create enough chaos to give Patricia and Kayla time to reach the secondary access point. He fought with all the fury of a grieving father, each strike fueled by the memory of Kevin's smile. Meanwhile, Patricia led Kayla through maintenance tunnels beneath the council chamber. "There's an old data terminal here," Patricia explained. "It connects to the archive, but isn't on the main security grid. The council forgot about it years ago." Kayla examined the dusty terminal. "This is ancient. I'll need time to interface with it." "Jack is buying us that time," Patricia said. "Work fast." Back at the checkpoint, Jack found himself surrounded. His diversion had worked. He had drawn all security to his position. But now he faced overwhelming odds. A stun blast hit him in the shoulder, sending him to his knees. Guards swarmed him, securing his arms with energy restraints. "Human," one guard sneered, "primitive and predictable." They dragged Jack to a holding cell. His body ached from the stun blast, but his mind remained clear. The mission wasn't over. Patricia and Kayla still had a chance. An hour passed. Then the cell door opened. High Commissioner Zextalos entered, his 4 eyes studying Jack with cold curiosity. "Jack Harrison," Zextalos said, "former Earth Special Forces, father of the human child who attacked a Vexeri youth." Jack met the alien's gaze. "My son didn't attack anyone. You know that." "What I know," Zextalos replied, "is that you have illegally entered Nexus Prime and assaulted Council security forces. These are serious crimes. No more serious than murdering an innocent child for political gain," Jack said. Zextalos' skin darkened slightly, a sign of annoyance. "You are in no position to make accusations. Where are your accomplices?" Jack smiled. "What accomplices?" Before Zextalos could respond, the lights flickered. Emergency alarms began to sound throughout the facility. "What is happening?" Zex Talos demanded into his communicator. A panicked voice responded, "Someone is accessing the archives. All security files are being broadcast across the Council communication network." Jack's smile widened. "Sounds like you have bigger problems than me, Commissioner." Zex Talos rushed from the cell. Jack sat back, knowing Patricia and Kayla had succeeded. The truth was being revealed to all Council worlds simultaneously. In the ancient data terminal room, Kayla worked frantically at her console while Patricia kept watch. "I've accessed everything," Kayla said. "Not just Kevin's case, but hundreds of others. The Council has been manipulating justice for centuries." Patricia stared at the screen. "Look at this file. A secret directive to maintain the original Council species' power by limiting newer members through selective enforcement of laws." "Broadcasting now," Kayla announced. "Every screen on every Council world will show this for the next 5 minutes. That's all the time we have before they shut us down." Across Nexus Prime, screens in public places suddenly changed. The peaceful face of Kevin Harrison appeared, followed by footage of what really happened with the Vexari child. Then came document after document showing Council manipulation of evidence, selective enforcement, and deliberate targeting of newer species. In the Council chamber, where the Justice Summit was underway, delegates watched in horror as their own secret directives were displayed for all to see. Back in his cell, Jack heard footsteps approaching. He prepared for the worst. The door slid open, but instead of guards, Patricia stood there with a stolen security badge. "We need to go," she said urgently. "Kayla's waiting with an escape shuttle." Jack shook his head. "I'm staying." "That's suicide," Patricia argued. "Once they regain control, they'll execute you." "Maybe," Jack said. "But I want to face Zex Talos again. He needs to see what humans do when pushed too far." Patricia hesitated, then pressed something into Jack's hand. "A small weapon. At least defend yourself. The broadcast has caused chaos. You can reach the Council chamber now if you hurry." After Patricia left, Jack examined the weapon. Then he set it aside. Violence wasn't his goal anymore. The truth was out. Now he wanted to witness the aftermath. Jack walked out of his unlocked cell. The guards were gone, responding to the greater emergency. He made his way toward the Council chamber, toward the leaders who had ordered his son's death. It was time for them to face a father's judgment. Jack walked through the corridors of the Council building. Alarms blared and beings of various species rushed in all directions. No one stopped him. In the chaos, he was just another figure moving with purpose. The grand doors to the Council chamber stood open. Inside, representatives from 27 species argued loudly. On the main screen, evidence of Council corruption continued to play. Jack saw images of his son, followed by footage of other victims from a dozen worlds. Jack entered quietly and stood at the back. He recognized Zex Talos at the center of the chamber, trying to restore order. The Vexari delegation huddled together, scales darkened with fear. "This is human trickery," shouted a Vexari diplomat that Jack recognized as Sevkarn. "They manipulated these records." "The records are genuine," came a voice from the side. An elderly council member of a species Jack didn't recognize stood up. "I have suspected this corruption for decades but lacked proof." "We must shut down the broadcast," Zex Talos demanded. "It's too late," Jack said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Every being in Council space has seen the truth." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Jack. Guards moved to seize him, but Zex Talos held up a hand to stop them. "Jack Harrison," Zex Talos said, "you have caused quite a disturbance." Jack walked forward, into the center of the chamber. "I came for justice, not just for my son, but for every victim of your corrupt system." Murmurs spread through the gathered representatives. Many looked ashamed. Others seemed angry, not at Jack, but at their own leadership. "You are a criminal," Sevkarn hissed, "a savage who has attacked the very foundation of galactic peace." "Peace built on lies isn't peace," Jack replied. "It's just oppression wearing a mask." The elderly council member approached Jack. "I am Elder Tool of the Narration people. For 300 years, I have served on this council. What you have done today is unprecedented, but perhaps necessary." Jack faced the elder directly. "My son was 8 years old. He hurt no one. He was murdered to make a political point about keeping humans in our place." Zex Talos stepped forward. "The situation is more complex than you understand, human. Certain elements within the council sought to maintain the traditional power structure. I did not personally order your son's execution." "But you knew," Jack said. "You knew, and you did nothing." Zex Talos couldn't meet Jack's eyes. On the screens around the chamber, Kayla had programmed a final image, Kevin's school picture, his young face smiling broadly, full of hope and innocence. "Look at him," Jack said to the gathered representatives. "This is who you sacrifice for your politics." Many in the chamber lowered their heads. Even those who had opposed humans seemed affected by the image. Elder Tool turned to address the full council. "We have strayed from our founding principles. Justice must be equal for all species, not a tool to maintain power. Today we have been reminded of this by the most unlikely teacher, a human father's love for his child." A representative from a small, insectoid species stood. "I move for an immediate investigation into all cases of judicial corruption, beginning with the Harrison child." Another rose. "I second the motion and add that all current council leadership be suspended during the investigation." More voices joined in. The council was turning against its leaders. Zex Talos and Sev Karn found themselves isolated as their former allies distanced themselves. Jack watched it all unfold. This was more than he had hoped for. Not just exposure, but the beginning of real change. Elder Tool approached Jack quietly. "What happens to you now will be complicated. You have violated our laws, but revealed greater crimes. I cannot promise you freedom." "I didn't come for freedom," Jack replied. "I came for justice." 3 months later, Jack stood on the newly created Memorial Plaza on Nexus Prime. Before him was a monument bearing Kevin's image, along with those of other victims of council injustice from many species. Mary stood beside him, her hand in his. "He would have liked this," Mary said softly, "being remembered as someone who helped others." Jack nodded. The council had been reformed. Elder Tool now led a new justice committee with representatives from all species, including humans. Jack himself had been sentenced to work with this committee, sharing his perspective as both a victim and a criminal. As they turned to leave, Jack noticed something. Alien children played near the monument. Vexeri, Novan, Saurid, and others, including human children from the embassy. They played together without fear or prejudice. Kevin's death had not been meaningless after all. The wrong child had been killed, but his legacy would be a better galaxy for all children.